Hello everyone and welcome back to Overcoming Graduation with Brian Drury. So I apologize to all of my listeners who have been following the show closely because for the last few weeks I've been off the grid, and as many of you know, that has been for good reason because I was very focused on launching my book, The First Step. And I'm happy to report that not only did it launch, but it reached #1 bestseller in a category on Amazon and has already been spreading around the world to friends, family, and then friends of friends, and it's continuing to grow, so I'm very excited. And for anyone who's unaware, you can visit thefirststepgift.com to get your free gifts, to purchase a copy of the book, and also to learn more about My Team Triumph, which for the first 3 months of my book sales, 100% of what I make will be donated to My Team Triumph, which is an organization that helps individuals with disabilities participate in endurance events. But today is not about my book. Today is about my awesome friend, Jack Chen, who is the CEO of Neuraflow and a professional hip-hop dancer, among many, many other things. So in today's interview, here is what you're going to get. You're going to hear Jack's story and learn about how he lived a double life while he was in school as both an entrepreneur and a student. So he got started earlier than most, and before he'd even graduated was striving out into multiple entrepreneurial endeavors, from blogging to creating information products to working on internet marketing to consulting and so much more. You'll hear how one ambitious email got him the chance to work with a world-renowned speaker, coach, and therapist, and how that person became one of his first great mentors in his life and completely redirected him in a way that changed the trajectory of his life forever. You're going to learn about why value creation is the key to having everything you want in your life. You'll also hear about how hip-hop dance has made Jack a better entrepreneur and a happier person. And this is something that is very close to my heart because I've recently started to get into dancing in a more formal way with salsa, and it has completely changed my life. I've been missing it since I came down to Brazil and really wanting to get back. So anybody who needs a pick-me-up and needs to get out of their head, promise you, just go dancing and everything will become clear. So then, Jack will also discuss the concept of transition anxiety, what it is, why it may be the one thing holding you back from living the life of your dreams, and how, once you understand it, you can use it to conquer your biggest fears. You're going to learn what is the thing that dancing does that few other activities in the world can actually do for your brain. Jack will also explain the concept ready, fire, aim, and how this may be the key to helping you overcome the procrastination that's keeping you from accomplishing your biggest goals and dreams. And then you're also going to learn about Jack's fantastic supplement Neuraflow, which is Neuraflow. And Jack was kind enough to offer all of the Overcoming Graduation listeners a 10% discount when you purchase his product Neuraflow by entering the discount code Brian Drury, all one word, when you go to buyneuraflow.com. That's BUYNEURAFLOW.com. And then just enter the discount code Brian Drury, that's Brian with an I, the last name is D as in David, R-U-R-Y, and you get 10% off your purchase of Neuraflow. So thank you guys all for listening, thank you for coming back, and I am excited to present you all to my fantastic friend, Jack Chen. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Overcoming Graduation with Brian Drury. Today my guest is a good friend of mine, and I'm laughing because we were already laughing so much before the call. And he's going to be a guy who's going to be able to share some stories about his entrepreneurial endeavor in the supplements industry and what he calls brain health, that's a neuro supplement to help boost your performance and help you operate at a higher level. And we're also going to be talking about his story of how he arrived at 25 to be doing this entrepreneurial endeavor, and we'll also be digging into the other aspects of his life because Jack and I bond over pop locking and hip-hop dancing. So you got an Irish guy and an Asian guy just pop locking randomly in random crowds and just having a hell of a lot of fun doing it. So I'd like you to welcome Jack to the show. So Jack, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Brian. That was quite the introduction. I think we can end the show right there.
Yep, you know what?
That's it. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, everybody. All right, so if you want to learn more about the business, go to Overcoming. So Jack Chen is a friend of mine that I just met late last year, and one of those people that we just kind of instantly bonded. We're on the same page. We're both young guys. We're ambitious. We want to make a big mark in the world, and so we hit it off in this magical, beautiful way, and you know, it's just the relationship's growing. And we expect not a lot of seriousness on this call, guys. So, so Jack, as I told you before the call, I like to start this off by beginning the story at graduation, because my audience is primarily going to be in that area of either just about to graduate or having just graduated school, and they're about to strike out into the world, and there's all the fear and uncertainty that just kind of captures that moment. There's some excitement, there's also fear, and it all blends together. So can you tell us about where you went to school, what you studied, and what were your feelings when you were at that point of about to graduate?
Yeah, so I went to the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, Fighting Illini, and basically I studied advertising. And what was interesting is I started out actually as a human nutritionist, because I kind of followed the whole traditional path. My father wanted me to kind of follow into the nutrition world and kind of be a quote-unquote like doctor, and you know, the whole thing with Asians. And you know, midway through, I was like, you know, I wasn't really confident in my ability in doing that. You know, like I'd rather do something that I'm a lot more passionate about if I'm going to go to school. And then ultimately, dude, like if I'm going to be spending these 4 years, I got to be learning something that I know I'm going to be really good at. So at that time, I couldn't really go into the business school because they had like a rule and regulation for transfers. But I ended up studying advertising, and I graduated in 2013. And you know what was interesting is because throughout college it was like an interesting mix of kind of going to school and going through the emotions of school, and then but also like working on my entrepreneurial endeavors, you know, networking, going to so many like different business conferences. So it was almost like I was living two lives, one of them obviously more passionately than the other. And you know, as graduation came along, you know, I was excited that these 4 years were finally over, but ultimately, you know, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air. And I don't know if I had that feeling of like, yeah, like 4 years, you know, that's it. And if I go into the corporate world, I'm excited. You know, it was definitely not that. And it was, you know, I don't know how to really explain it, but more of like a fresh start, you know, into this new journey of entrepreneurship.
And so, now, was this the supplement company that you started in college?
No, dude, being an entrepreneur, what's interesting is you obviously go through a ton of stuff, right, before you actually find your one thing that you're really good at. That seems to be like the pattern of like every huge entrepreneur. But I went through a lot of different businesses before I finally hit home with my current business.
Can you tell us about what a couple of those businesses were?
Oh man,
Pet Rock,
actually before even all that though, I actually got the internship. I got to intern with Sean Stevenson, where we both met, and so that actually kind of gave me more of a spark into it. And after that, you know, I did stuff like blogging, like making money through blogging. I tried to make like information products on productivity. I joined like a bunch of network marketing companies, just like a lot of different pursuits in entrepreneurship, and just fail until you just become desensitized to it and very attached to the purpose instead.
And so for the listeners, that's a really key point, is you hear this so much when you start getting into any type of personal development, sales, marketing, any of these different fields. When you start reading and consuming content, they talk about fail fast, learn quick, and then fail again. And so they want you to, like Jack said, become desensitized to it. So failure is not this horrible, crushing thing. It's just a part of the process that helps you identify where the process isn't working, so you can modify and then grow that into an even better process, or modify and pivot into something beautiful and wonderful and new. But Jack, I'm glad you reminded me about the internship with Sean Stevenson, because for the listeners, if any of you have been following the show, you know Sean is one of the biggest mentors in my life. He's a good friend of Jack and mine, and his conference is where I've met many of the people I interview on this show, and Jack is included in that group. So, Jack, one of the biggest things that you hear when you graduate school is that you should find good mentors, but it's really, really hard to do. And so I actually remember hearing this story at the most recent Sean Stevenson conference of how you got the internship with Sean. Could you please share that with the listeners? Because it's a fantastic story.
Yeah. So for those of you out there, Eben Pagan was one of my like heroes, just from like a business aspect, personal growth aspect, like a manlyhood aspect, just like everything about him was just so phenomenal. Like he was really inspiring, and he had a lot of the goals that I wanted to achieve in life, and he helped me grow a lot as a person as well.
And Jack,
I was like, you know what, I wanna drop out of school and I wanna intern for him. Like I don't care if I'm scrubbing his floor, I don't care, whatever. Like I just need to be around him and his energy and his, people.
And Jack, could you tell the listeners who Eben Pagan is? Because I know in the Sean Stevenson circle, that's a name and a guy that's just huge. But until I got into this industry, I had no idea who he was. So could you please tell the listeners a little bit about who Eben Pagan is? That's That's EbenPagan, Eben Pagan.
Yeah. EBENI, or BEB, yeah, that's right. His name is so difficult to spell sometimes.
I got it, Jack. God's sakes.
Yeah, basically, Eben is this incredible person. First of all, he's a multi-millionaire. He's in the hundreds of millions, but not just through the idea of making money, but the idea of helping people and creating value. So he was one of the first people on the internet to use the idea of an opt-in. So if you've ever seen like an opt-in page or a squeeze page where you had to like put your email in to get something or like sign up for a newsletter, Eben Pagan was one of the first guys to do that and be able to monetize that. And he did that by creating a business that taught dating techniques to men, and he also did it with a business where he taught high-level kind of business strategies to kind of Fortune 100 companies and even consulting for Fortune 500 companies. So he's made his mark on this planet as someone that is very, very good at teaching and very, very good at creating a lot of value.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So now that the listeners know who Eben Pagan is, now they understand why you were just like, I will do anything to work for this guy. And I've heard many people say, I would do anything to meet so-and-so. So tell them a little bit about that journey of how you said, all right, this is how I'm going to meet Eben.
All right. Well, I mean, there's a couple variations of the story, and you've heard Sean's variation. But you know what? We'll entertain that idea, and because I love Sean, and I think it's an awesome story, and he's never going to change it. But basically, I said, Eben Pagan actually told me in one of his videos that the best way to get to a mentor is to be good friends or contact the people that he's friends with or that are his mentors, and that's the best way to do it. If you can impress his mentors, then you've got his attention.
Right.
And so I was like looking through his network. I was like, who does he know? Like all these different people. And then in one of his videos, he was like, this person is the most inspirational person that I've ever met. And Eben said that. I was like, okay, sure. And then he said, this is Sean Stevenson. And I was like, okay, Sean Stevenson. He lives in Chicago, Illinois. I'm in Illinois as well. And, he's a cool guy. I love his stuff. I'm just going to send him an email. And I had created this like kind of resume, this web-page resume just for Eben to kind of like pitch myself and why I think he should pick me to be his intern. And, I went to Sean and I was like, dude, here's this awesome webpage. I know it's great. You don't have to tell me. And, Eben Pagan and like, you're good friends with him. And, I'd love it if you could just forward this to him. And, thanks so much, man. I hope you have a great day. Listen, we don't know where that email has gone. It is out in the universe. It's lost. But some variation of that, right? Mm-hmm. And Sean was like, not really. He wasn't too big of a fan of that idea, so he called me on my phone, and I got really excited because Sean Stevenson was calling me on my phone, mm-hmm. and he said, taught me a really important lesson that day. And to us right now, it's kind of common sense, but to me back then was like an 18-year-old kind of college student. Mm-hmm. Sean taught me that I have to provide value of some sort, right? And so the world is always about value creation, not value extraction. And the majority of people in this world, when you want to find a mentor, it's all about being able to create value for them as opposed to immediately seeking value from them. Mm-hmm. And what I was doing is I immediately sought value from Eben and from Sean, and I didn't do anything in return for them. I just wanted them to give me that network. Mm-hmm. And because of that, it doesn't get you anywhere. It's all about making sure you create reciprocation. Right.
And for the listeners, so that whole concept of value creation first, this is a constant recurring theme in this podcast, and there's something that I've found that when you keep seeing recurring things, it's because there is so much truth in them. Now, if you think about what Jack did, I mean, ballsy, definitely ballsy, but Sean Stevenson is a world-renowned speaker. He's spoken all over the world. He's a best-selling author. So you got this young kid who's reaching out, and just picture reaching out to Michael Jordan and saying, "Hey, Jordan, I really want basketball lessons, and I know you know that guy Kobe Bryant, so could you put me in touch to him?" And so when Sean told this story, he was like, I was a little bit like, why doesn't this kid want to work with me? And he's like, all right, all this fire, and he wants to get to my mentor. So he talks to Jack and says, you got to create value, but he also was inspired by Jack's persistence and his willingness to just go out and ask and go for it. So from the way that Sean tells it, like Jack said, there's always two sides to the story, but Sean said, I want you to work with me. And so can you tell the listeners a little bit about what it was like working with Sean Stevenson as an 18-year-old guy?
Yeah, little does Sean know that was my plan the entire time.
It was all this inception and just like NLP, and I just twisted.
Yes,
and
exactly. Working with Sean was probably the best. I would have spent my like $80,000 in college. Like if I would have easily done that for Sean if I could. You know what I mean? Like somehow transferred those funds just to Sean.
Yep.
And that's how much value he's created for my life. That's how much he's taught me from an aspect of being a good person and creating value and following your purpose and finding your talents and pursuing them. Mm-hmm. And so he's taught me a lot. He's taught me a lot of values that I don't know if I can finish and do justice by going through it in this podcast. But, just take my word for it that, this guy he's the biggest lesson that I think he's ever taught me was that you have to realize that you have to create value in a world where everybody seeks value and doesn't want to return it, if that makes sense. Like everybody's always wanting value, and the best way to differentiate yourself to get attention and to get that mentor or to do something incredible in life is to create value, period. Right? You want to be a millionaire, you got to create value first. Right? You want that job opportunity, you got to create the value first. You have to show the value, you have to be able to market yourself. So just value, period. Right? How do you convey it, how do you communicate it, and how do you distribute it?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and for the listeners, that can translate so well into the concept of getting a job or creating a job. But let's just say coming out of college, most people are wanting to look to find some kind of dream job. If you walk in and you sit down in that interview and go, "Hi, my name is Brian, give me the damn job," they're like, okay, what have you done to verify that this is going to be a good decision for me? But then if you come in and you sit down and you look at this person and say, I've learned as much about this company as I can. I've learned as much about you as I can. I've tried to understand your needs and wants, and here is how I can help you get what you want. And here are the needs that I can fulfill. Here are the skills that I have. Now you've just made their decision easy because you've addressed all of their questions. You're going to help them fulfill their needs. And now you've created value for them by showing how valuable you can be within their company. So this value proposition, now it's tricky because the way that it really works the best is something that Jack and I have both applied, and there's times where I've personally done it incorrectly, where it's giving value without any expectation of return. It is truly just giving wholeheartedly without any expectation of something coming back. Now, what ends up happening when you give in this way is that you receive things back. Things just start coming back very naturally because people appreciate the way that you show up in the world. But when you start to give with intent, give with a desire for a return, that will come through. People will be very aware of what you're doing. It's much easier to spot than you think, even if it's just a feeling. And then that breaks the trust between you and that person. So creating value without any expectation of return, and then building your network and growing, then allowing these things to come into your life. And again, make it know what you want. Don't ask for a handout, but make it know what you're looking for, because these people will be so inclined to help you because of the massive value you've created for them.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's all about relative value. Every company, every organization and person, like they have their own definition of what value is and what's valuable. So just because you think something is valuable to one person or one organization doesn't mean it's going to be valuable to the next. It's not like a cookie cutter method. It's very personal. Value is a very interesting concept.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because for one company, and one of the things, being a young adult, being a millennial, coming out into the working world, one of the biggest negative limiting beliefs that we have inside of us is that I'm not good enough yet. I don't have any value. I need to get trained and get a couple years experience before I can provide value. Now, Jack and I are going to get into later what is the true value that millennials bring to the workplace. But keep in mind, as Jack said, maybe the value is just new, fresh ideas and a new perspective. Maybe it's new enthusiasm that comes in and brightens up the day of the people at work because everyone's just kind of heads down in the computer. It could be Excel skills. It could be computer skills. It could be communication. Value, as Jack said, is not a cookie cutter thing. And each of you listening, every single person has some value to bring and value that can be in multiple different categories. So keep that in mind as we continue to work through Jack's story. So Jack, you went through multiple entrepreneurial endeavors. Your pet rocks never really took off. It's been done, buddy. So you went through multiple entrepreneurial endeavors. You come to the end of school, and you arrive at this point where you're like, all right, I am ready for this next step and stage. And can you tell us about what that first step out into the quote-unquote real world looked like?
Yeah, it was so interesting because, coming from a family that was so, my family is very supportive of me in whatever I do. But in general, finding a job is the next logical step, right? The safest step. And to be honest, I've never been against getting a job in the corporate world 100%. I'm just against, doing something that doesn't provide value in your skill and talents in the long term, right? Mm-hmm. So, if you want to work for a job, that's not the bad thing. It's just making sure that you're learning something valuable and unique and talented. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, then you got to realize that, you've got to utilize that someday. Mm-hmm. But for me, the first year out of college was really interesting because I just kept doing different entrepreneurial pursuits, kept failing, but then I bumped into hip hop dancing. That was actually the first year that I got out of college was all 100% hip hop. So yeah, and then I got into it because one of my best friends is a hip hop dancer, and he, I don't know. I've always been in love with hip hop. I never had the right spark to get into it, and so after college, I really took the time to pursue it and learn it and just really understand the art form.
That's interesting. Okay, so it went into dance first, so you're working on some entrepreneurial things. Dance comes into your life, and then you see that you start to find this value. So for the listeners, can you tell how good of a dancer were you when you started?
Oh, dude, crap! Come on, everybody. The thing is, it's all about transition anxiety, and so when you start doing something new, no matter what it is, you always have this anxiety because you suck at it, right? And you're like, damn, I'm in this environment where everybody's better than me, and I keep, I'm not good at it. I keep failing, and then you have this transition anxiety, and you have difficulty getting into this new culture, this new subculture. And dance has done so much for me than just bringing the value of dance into my life. It's taught me a lot of lessons through my business that I've applied into my business to become successful right now. So it's not just giving me sexy moves.
And for the listeners, Jack is an excellent dancer now, so I can just vouch for him. The guy's awesome. So. Now, I've felt this as well because I recently started taking salsa lessons, and it's something I've always wanted to do. I've always enjoyed dancing. I've been doing hip-hop dancing just kind of, not officially or through lessons, just for a good portion of my life. But I always wanted to do something formal, something that, you can only do grinding for so long in so many circumstances. And, trying to bust that out at a wedding and a nice slow song, not so great. So, I wanted something that's more fun. It's more connected. I could go out and meet more people. And in trying that, I've learned so many lessons, like you said, but I've also found a new level of happiness in something that I had never really dug into before. And it brings me so much joy. So when that happens in my life, it's kind of this realization that you haven't found everything that you love in life yet. There's so many things to try, so you got to keep trying things and keep experimenting because you never know how much joy something can bring to your life until you try it. And in some circumstances, you try it and you go, you know what, not for me, but now I know. And It's not just this thought and this wondering what it could be like. So can you share with the listeners some of the lessons that hip-hop dancing has brought into your life and how that's benefited you personally and your business?
Yeah, Because I've always been a super logical guy before hip hop, and hip hop. What's interesting is I don't know if you know this, but dancing is actually the one of the very few activities, I should say, in this world that actually accesses both parts of your brain at the same time. Like it's stimulated at the same time, very intensely, and that's because you have to move your body in relation to the music, beats, and rhythm. So it's not just artistic movement, but you're doing it very structurally and logistically towards music, rhythm, and beats and dynamics. Yeah, and so I mean, yeah, if you're scared of dancing, then just balls up and go do it, because it's you're gonna learn a lot. And a couple things. I'd say 3 things. The first thing is that it's a pretty cheesy one, but I like it. I think we can use it. It's looking dumb, right? Being okay with looking dumb and failing. And the thing with dance is that I was immediately thrown into an environment. The company that I dance with right now is called Boom Crack Dance Company, and they're one of the premier Midwest dance companies in Chicago. And just being thrown in that environment, like when I first started, was like jumping into the fire and like doing it and learning it and just failing and failing. Like it was not an option. Like I had to fail, and that made me look stupid. That made me fail a lot, look dumb, give me self-doubt. But like being able to overcome that is obviously one of the greatest things, and that can apply to your entrepreneurial pursuits, right? That can apply to you trying something, and then your parents and family and friends would be like, dude, like that's so dumb, and they try and embarrass you and try to make you feel bad and guilty, right? So that's definitely one aspect. The second aspect is something that I like to phrase nowadays. I don't know if I can say I coined it, but it's called ready, fire, aim. And essentially the idea is that when you do ready, fire, aim, you get your shit ready, and then you just go do it, and then you readjust later on. Most people do ready, aim, fire, and they aim their entire lives, or they aim for a couple of years, and then they take that shot, and it's completely off, and then they gotta redo it all over again. Like imagine just being at the free throw line in basketball and taking like 5 minutes to like adjust your shot, and then shooting it, and then like having it miss, and you're like, damn, what happened? And so ready, fire, aim is huge, and I learned that through dance by, when you take class and you are selected to perform at the end. It's not like, oh, hold on, give me like 2 more hours.
Right,
get this. Yeah, let me get this like this pop right, or let me get this groove right. It's just not like there it is. You have what you have, and you use what you use, and that's it. Like no more preparation, right? And the last one is definitely patience. Going to dance, I was a very spastic dancer. You can ask all my mentors. Like I just rushed. I mean, my nickname is Jack Attack, and just because I always attack everything that I did in dance, and so I was not patient. I always attacked things, and that was reflected into my life through business, through everything. And once I learned how to be patient and like listen to the music and listen to control the music and control my body relative to it, I learned a lot more through that and applied that to my business, applied that to my relationships in life, everything, goals. So yeah, dance has definitely done more than one little bit in my life.
That's fantastic, man. And I can say from my own experience, I've had very, very similar lessons, even in a completely different style of dance. So you're doing hip hop, I'm doing salsa, bachata.
It's also so hard, dude. Yeah, I commend you for that.
Well, that's the thing. I like dance, and it's something that I've always enjoyed and I do well at. But when you step into a completely different style, it can be very overwhelming, and there can be a lot of that. I mean, I did a podcast episode about when I jumped into an intermediate salsa class in Argentina, and it was my 4th lesson ever. And as you can imagine, I was met with many confused stares from Argentinian women wondering what the hell I was trying to do, because it was certainly not salsa. And literally to the point where one girl said, the beginner class is on the side, right? Now it was
intermediate in Argentina is like professional here in the United States. Like that's how good they are.
Well, that was the thing. I jump in and they, they're just like, go for it. And I'm like, go. I was like, I know 2 spins. I can do that same spin that I can do. I don't want to do the second spin. I'll do that same spin 32 times for one song. Girls love that. Yeah, that's really sexy.
There it is.
But the thing is, like you said, is it's so that fear of looking stupid is one of the biggest things that holds people back from trying all of the things they want to try in the world. And especially in these circumstances where when you find a good school,
everybody remembers being there. No one's going to judge you, and they're so much more focused, even the really good people are much more focused on what they're doing and how they look and how they're working on their moves. So we get so much in our heads like, oh, everyone is watching me at all times, and every time I mess up, they're going to be, you know, judging me and criticizing. It's so not true. And that's partly in picking a good school and a good group of people. But when you're able to really, what I found, one of the biggest benefits for me, so I loved what you said, how how it is about not being afraid to look dumb. It's the ready, fire, aim, and then about being patient. For me, one of the biggest things it's done, like you, I'm a very analytical guy, very process-oriented. I want to break it down and deconstruct it and make the process better. But there's times where I get so much up in my head and I'm not down in my heart or in my body that I get like really worked up and stressed and anxious. What dance helps me do is let go, because there's times where when you think, you're overthinking to the point where you really complicate the moves. Whereas when you just let go and feel, and it may sound cliche, guys, but it's true, when you actually feel the music and just let your body go and express, and you get outside of your normal comfortable movements, it gives you this freedom because you're just kind of in your body and you're moving, you're connecting with the music and the person you're dancing with, and it is really just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So for anybody who's listening, if there's a style of dance you want to try, I don't care whether it's Afro, Cubano, I don't care if it's salsa, hip. No, I've done Afro. Those classes are fun. You want to talk about getting out of your body, Afro, Cubano. If you want to try a real close sensual dance, kizomba is super fun. Salsa is very energetic. Bachata is more basic. There's so many styles out there, guys. Get out and try something. So
definitely. I mean, especially with Latin dancing, it's partner based, right? And so it requires a very unique dynamic, right? And it's like you have to fail together, or like you have to succeed together. You know what I mean? So like you guys work together so that both of you look great, you know, and dance and do it correctly. And just a quick addition to what you said about looking stupid. One of the things that I really think about is that everybody is too concerned with themselves to think about you and judge you, right? And I think everybody's always concerned about failing, and then because of that, we think people judge us, when in reality, like, failure is a man-made concept, right? We created failure in our minds and society, and then we put this negative connotation to it, and thus it became what it is and alive, right? But reality is a man-made construct. Failure is a man-made construct.
And that's so true. And I love what you said about the partner aspect, because so where you have this idea like, oh, I'm going to look stupid and this Argentinian girl is going to judge me, you know, it's like, all right, sure, that does happen. And especially in there's certain scenarios that are more inviting, more open, and other scenarios where it's a more advanced crowd. And my dad said to me at one point, because there was one time I actually was out here in LA, and there's a salsa dancing in the street in Santa Monica, and there are really good people that dance there. And I've been learning casino style salsa, and these guys are doing kind of the one-on-one. I asked her to dance, and she looked at me and she's like, I only have so much energy. And like, I was like, can you help me and coach? And she looked at me like, oh God. And at first I got really offended and I got insecure, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't even dance. And ultimately I tried. I did get out and dance, but I didn't feel great about it that day. But my dad said, you know, Brian, she's got her own reasons for being there. And, you know, maybe she wants to dance with the really good people tonight. And maybe she really only did have that energy. So it's like you said about a man-made construct and failure. And we also create these stories of why this person said this. It's like, oh, because I suck and this, and it's really not that case. And what I've found is when I dance with other inexperienced people as well, or people that, you know, aren't out there to like try and look amazing, you end up laughing, you end up messing up, and it's hilarious. You know, there's no judgment. You're just having so much fun together in this learning process. And that's part of the joy of life, is finding joy in learning and making mistakes and growing. So to continue with your story, I think you and I could talk about dancing for a whole damn episode. We might do that.
We still do it though.
So Jack and I just took a ballet class together, and the tutors were a little tight.
Listen, my girlfriend keeps telling me to take a ballet class, and I keep finding excuses not to. So there it is. Like, you know, I got to take my own medicine.
Yeah,
so,
I think
it's just like that fear of looking stupid and doing that, like, you know, being in the corner and then not being able to do the form right, you know, whatever. It's all just a story that we tell, right?
Worrying that you don't have the right color leotard. I've been there, man. I know. I mean, it's not going to match my new socks. Like,
absolutely.
But the funny thing is, I bet a lot of guys listening to this one like, ballet, that's not a man thing. how many guys have you heard about in the NFL and guys that are doing UFC and mixed martial arts that do this to learn body control, flexibility, and strength in awkward postures? And it's like, I guarantee, so, I've started doing yoga very recently in this coaching and fitness transformation I'm doing. And you look at yoga, I think most guys look at yoga and go, it's girl stuff, that's easy, it's just stretching. Try it. Try an hour power yoga class. Check out Sean Vig on YouTube. You'll be crying. I promise you. It is an incredible workout and great for your flexibility.
You'll be more sore than like lifting weights. You'll be sore in places you didn't know you could be sore in.
Exactly. And you'll have huge benefits. It'll help you build muscle faster. You'll prevent injuries. So again, we'll go on from that. But Jack, I think I have to challenge you to get to a ballet class in the next few weeks and help your girlfriend out here.
Just gotta find the right size leotard. That's all.
Exactly. I'll send you some of mine. I've got some extras.
All right. Only blue.
So hip hop was the first year after school, and then how was the next step into this health supplement entrepreneurial endeavor, or what was the next step after?
Right. Yeah. So immediately after that, I got into the hip hop dance community and learned a lot. I started teaching hip hop, and then naturally, like throughout that time, I was also doing business. So keep in mind, it wasn't just like full-time hip hop. And so naturally, I learned from Frank Kern. I learned from a bunch of like very successful internet marketing consultants and business people. And I decided to start my own consulting company. And I was also very good at video. So video marketing, video persuasion, consulting for small businesses, optimization, like the typical kind of internet marketing consultation optimization thing, like increase your traffic, increase your conversions. So I was like, I know enough about that stuff. I'll just start a business and I'll make lots of money. And we all do that thing where we like get out the calculator and be like, oh, if I make this much money this month, that means I'll make $1 million by the end of the 6 months.
$1 billion.
We all do that, man.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It was moderately successful, I'd say, my consulting business. But I'm gonna bring it back home with the point that it's passion, right? And my moderate success brought me kind of satisfaction, and by moderate I mean financial success. And making the money, it was good money every month, but it wasn't hitting the spot, and it wasn't kind of fulfilling that unique kind of void in my soul that I wanted to like create something that I really loved and was proud to tell other people about, and something that combined my talents and my unique abilities and just my passion overall. And so I said I can't do it. I can't do consulting. I gotta stop it.
Interesting. Yeah, this is another recurring theme that I hear with a lot of the entrepreneurs that I interview, is that there's this idea, and again, it may sound almost like a cliche, but there's a reason that we hear it so much, and there can be truth in these cliches, is that money doesn't buy happiness. And so as a college graduate, you're like, yeah, but if I had like $100,000, I'd be pretty damn happy. I want to say, guys, I have found that to not be true in my life, because the point where I had the most money in the bank account, most money in the 401k, like was the most financially stable I've ever been, was one of the most unhappy points of my life. I was in the worst physical condition, emotional and mental. Granted, this was largely due in part to the loss of my mom and going through that journey. And so I understood that there was it was okay to cope with this in whatever way I needed to, but at that point I recognized that's why I invested in my coach with Peter Scott, and he's helped me make massive transformations.
Yeah, he's awesome, dude.
Oh, he's fantastic. And in massive transformations in the past 4 months. And so the thing is, if I had not made the biggest investment of my life and hired him, I could have had lots of money. And sure, with money there were certain comforts where, I could leave a nice tip, I could pick up the drinks or something, and those are things I've always wanted to do, and it was nice. But to Jack's point, I wasn't feeling this just overwhelming pride and satisfaction, this self-love that I could share with other people. So like Jack said, it needs to have passion to it. One of the biggest mistakes I made in college was working under the assumption that I just need to find, and I joked about the pet rock earlier, but it's like, I need to find the next pet rock or Snuggie, make $1 million and just, retire and start so I can travel all over the world. And the thing is, there's no passion there, so the second you start hitting resistance and challenges, you are so much more prone to give up. Whereas, like Jack said earlier, when you are invested and your heart and soul is in this, you are going to find a way to work through it and push through the challenges to continue to bring value to people. So,
absolutely.
So, Jack, so you said consulting was not for me. So what came next?
Yeah, and what's funny is during that time I was doing a lot of self-experimentation with supplements, and I've been taking supplements for a very long time. My family, we're very healthy. Either is we're all organic, we take supplements to kind of enhance that, and I'm a big believer in the idea that diet is first, right? Diet and lifestyle creates the foundation so that you can take supplements and see the effects.
Right.
So getting that out of the way first, right? But so naturally, I did a lot of self-experimentation. It's a new industry called Nootropics, Nootropics, and basically it's brain enhancement via supplementation, information, like technology, essentially like biohacking, right? Brain hacking and Timothy Ferris kind of stuff. And so I got really into it. What's that?
I've never heard anyone call him Timothy Ferris. He's always Tim Ferris. So. You just know him so well. Yeah. Me and Timothy, we just hang out and we talk. He calls me Jack Thaniel, and we just laugh about our nootropics. All right. But
I hope he hears this podcast one day.
Yeah, one day. Yeah, oh my God, that would be fantastic. I'd love to have him on. Tim, if you're listening,
basically, I did a lot of self-experimentation on it, and I was always interested in like brain enhancement, like brain performance on a safe level. So like, what can we do to kind of increase focus, increase concentration and productivity, but still keep it safe and still keep it very functional. And so basically, I couldn't really find the majority of supplements didn't really have the ingredients that I liked and the safe ingredients that I wanted to use. And so I would have like 10 different supplements that I would take simultaneously, or like all these different things, and then I just did a lot of self-experimenting that a lot of people would probably question. A lot of pill taking, but I was very, very statistical about it, very factual about it, scientific about it, so it's cool. Just make sure if you do drugs, make sure it's scientific, kids.
Yeah, exactly. Just measure it out properly.
Yeah, measure it out. And so basically, being an entrepreneur, we do what we do best, is we create solutions in problems, right? And so the problem was I didn't have a supplement that had all of the ingredients that I wanted in it, that I did the most research on, and that had the most scientific research behind them. And so I went out and I just said, I'm going to create the supplement for myself, but also I think I'm going to create it for a business as well. So I started it as a small side thing, and eventually it just kind of grew, and now it's a full-time thing. I just launched it actually yesterday.
Oh, congratulations, man.
Yeah,
That's
thank
awesome.
you. So yeah.
And so, just so you know, this interview is probably going to be published several weeks after we're actually doing this. So that's so the business will be live. We're doing this August 18th for the listeners. So business will be live and rolling, and Jack will have made his millions of dollars by the time this.
Got that calculator. Yep.
Yeah, and click, and zeros. It's like,
yes.
It's like the step 1, hire me. Step 3, profit.
Exactly.
So fantastic. Well, congratulations, dude. That's really exciting. And so can you tell the listeners a little bit about your product or products and what makes your products different? Also, and your company name as well.
Yeah, my company name is Neuraflow. So it's Neura Flow, Flow. And the website is buyneuraflow.com if you want to check it out. But basically, what's funny is I don't know if you met Brad Costanzo at John's.
I hung out with him last weekend in San Diego.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Yeah, maybe you put that Facebook message on. Yeah. So I was talking to him about this a while back, and he actually was one of my beta testers for it, and he asked me that exact same question, and I looked at him and I was like, I really don't know, Brad. There's no like proprietary formula that I have in here. There's no like exotic, rare, acai berry, like Amazonian like super fruit that I just found. None of that stuff, and so what differentiates Neuraflow is a couple things. The first thing is customer service. Is I am always one-on-one with you guys. I'm not doing brand to customer. It's basically person to consumer. And the second thing is that the formulation that I've created is the result of hours and hours and hours and months and months and months of self-experimentation, hours in research, and just me really figuring out what A is the safest combination of supplements and ingredients, and B, what is the most effective kind of combination. So I ended up up finding 9 ingredients that I thought worked really well and had the most scientific research behind them. And basically, they're the staple of all nootropics and brain enhancements. And I put them all in one pill and one bottle, and I called it Neuraflow. And basically, it has done wonders for me. It's actually the one thing that has gotten me through this launch period. It's done a lot for me. And the thing about it is that most of these the one thing I'll tell you actually right now, the one thing that does differentiate me from most nootropics and pills is that I don't have caffeine in mine.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and the majority of these similar kind of companies and products, they will put caffeine in their products, and what they'll do is you'll feel the effects, within 30 minutes to an hour. When in fact you're just feeling the effects of caffeine.
Right.
And then they're crediting it to all these other, ingredients inside of their pill, which may help in a little bit, but they're just feeling the caffeine.
Right.
So the big thing about this one is that it's not about the jolts of energy that you're going to get. It's not about the feelings of caffeine that you're going to get, but think about more like mental clarity. Think about more like mental endurance, more willpower possibly, like better concentration, more kind of productivity, like consistent throughout the day, as opposed to just like jabs and punches of energy that you get up and down.
That's fantastic, man. And I actually, recently in my life and through this coaching with Peter, I've worked to get caffeine out of my routine. It's not that I can never have it, it's that I don't require it in order to be successful and productive. And I found, like you said, that I have much less of this total variability and these crazy spikes of energy and then just total downturns. It's a much more level playing field. So what you're doing with your nootropics is finding a way to take that state of consistent energy and flow and focus and boosting it to a higher level.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's targeted towards entrepreneurs. That's my target market, and that's what I actually kind of use to describe it. Is flow, is flow inside of a pill. The psychological phenomenon flow. So just basically being hyper focused, hyper concentrated, and totally absorbed into the task at hand, and being able to perform at your best. And obviously, it's not a magic pill, and I don't want to market it that way, but it's obviously something that can help enhance the effects of concentration when kind of supplied with diet, healthy lifestyles, and good techniques and productivity exercises.
And for the listeners, for anyone who is listening and thinking, hey, I might want to try that, I know Jack. I've met him multiple times, and he's a fantastic person and extremely authentic. So everything he's saying, I fully endorse and I back him. So if you're curious, oh, of course, dude, of course. I love to see when good people are going out and trying to make a true difference for people in the world, and I want to support them every way I can. So
definitely, yeah. I'll even create a coupon for just the listeners here if you guys want.
Oh,
so yeah, if you guys want, dude, just do Brian Drury. So
great.
You'll get 10% off.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. All right,
Absolutely.
So listeners, there's even more incentive. So Jack has, by the time this gets published, he'll have a couple weeks of selling under his belt, and you can use the Brian Drury coupon. That's my first coupon. It's very exciting to get a discount on the product and try this for yourself. So, like I said before, Jack is a true stand-up guy, and he also has done this experimentation on himself. So, if you can't, you really can't have a better test subject than your own body, because I'm sure lots of those supplement companies out there in the world are just finding a formula, they're throwing caffeine in, they know people will feel a certain result, and even there can be the placebo effect of, I've taken a nootropic, now I'm going to be at a higher level. Whereas Jack has researched the ideal arrangement to give you true results and not just a false feeling of results based off caffeine, which has addictive qualities and all kinds of negative effects as well. So definitely. Fantastic, dude. So now,
and one last thing, actually, sorry, I just want to let them know that it is a 30-day money back. So I just want to let them know that it's kind of planning for the variability in the biology of your body, right? You're not gonna feel the effects like everybody else, right? So if it doesn't work, I do offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. All right, that's it.
Fantastic, dude. No,
we're done that plug.
I love. It's funny because some people are like, "Well, can I make a plug?" I'm like, "Of course, dude. That's why you're on the show. I want to help people find out more about you and find your products and buy them and everything." And I mean, it's fantastic, man. This is really exciting stuff. Congratulations, because I know it's one of those things where working to find the thing that's your passion, that's one of the things I want to help people do, and to really dig in and engage and invest. And now you found that thing and you're really applying. And it's funny how it ties back into what you originally started with in college, how you had that kind of nutritional and behavioral interest in how we could supplement the body, and now you found this way to loop that back in. That's another common theme with entrepreneurs. So great, dude.
Definitely. Right. Yeah, great. I mean, a great quote with that one is always use the system as a tool, never be a tool inside of the system. So I went to school for advertising, I went to school for human nutrition, but it doesn't mean I'm going to live inside of that and let that dictate my career and future. But I will use those skill sets as tools in systems and products that I create.
That is fantastic. I love that. I love how you frame that too, because so many young adults coming out of school look at, they say, I've heard so many people say, I picked the wrong thing, or I wasted my time. But if they really take a moment to look back and look at their experiences, there are so many parallels in life. There are so many ways to connect what you're learning, what you want to learn, and what you've learned, and bring them all together to have this beautiful synergy. I mean, Jack and I both are hugely involved with dance, so from different styles to dance, you can find all kinds of parallels, both in the mental aspects, the physical aspects, and how you flow in the movements. Now, what I love to do is draw parallels between things that seem seemingly totally different, and I'm constantly, when I'm talking to my dad after a dance class, and I'm all excited, and I had fun, or I learned a new turn, I compare it to jiu-jitsu, which I did for 2 years. And so the thing is, there are a lot of parallels between learning a new move and the frustration and messing up and, people looking at you or whatever. But whereas in dance, when you mess up, you just kind of feel stupid, or you might have just turned weird. It's like in jiu-jitsu, you get choked out. So
yeah, you die.
So there's death. No, I don't want to scare anybody off jiu-jitsu. It's a fantastic martial art. You just tap out when things get bad. But it's but there are similar impacts, so I love drawing those parallels. So
definitely, dude. I mean, tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but I would say the majority of people are very, very kind of afraid to dance and move their body in foreign ways, compared to the regular, I don't know, whatever regular movements of daily life.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's something that you and I, being guys who love to dance, still face that. There's still that aversion at times where it's like, oh, I'm not going to get out in that circle, or I'm not going to, I'm not as good, or whatever, when the goal shouldn't be to be the best and to look the best. It should be to feel the best and enjoy the most. And that's something that I've found where one of my favorite things is people watching at clubs. It is a hilarious and wonderful and fun thing to do, but what I found I would do at times is judge people, and be like, oh, they're awful, I'm way better. And
what kind of a pop was that? What kind of a turn? Who taught you to turn like that?
Stupid, yeah, exactly. Oh, I can definitely move better. And it's and all I'm doing is being an insecure, I'm just feeding my insecurity and trying to cover up the doubts and fears I have. And so when I just go out and have fun, one of the best things is watching, one of my favorite things to watch is a person who doesn't care about what other people think, and they, even if they move great or not, they just go off and they have fun. That's one of the most intoxicating, engaging, there's a word I'm looking for. It draws you in, and you're like, I want to be that happy. When you can be that person, it's fantastic. So, and Jack, what do you think is some of the biggest things holding people back from just getting out and moving their bodies to music?
This fear, man, period, right? Whatever fear means, there's a whole ton of crap that has to do with that, your wiring as a human being, a bunch of scientific and psychological things that we can get into. But let's make it super simple and just say that it's fear, right? You fear to dance because you don't want to look stupid, or you don't want to fail, whatever it is. And I think when you can get into the habit of always doing what you fear, you will succeed more than anyone else around you. But even if you don't want to compare yourself to people around you, which you shouldn't, you will succeed to exponential levels in your own life. And just, I mean, as long as that fear doesn't involve death, right? Or risk of death, which dancing or like talking to a girl or like, you know, running your own business or following your passions, none of those things do that, right? And so we've been kind of wired to feel fear and kind of follow the norm of culture. And the best way to do that is just to kind of do what you fear, make it a habit, and realize that fear, Michael Jordan said it, fear is just an illusion, right? So
it's so true, man. And it's fascinating how fear constantly comes up, and it is always part of this topic because it's something that we all face. Now, for the listeners, through this overcoming graduation journey, one of my things is I need to live this message in order to truly share it from an authentic place with you. And what you will find is when you start taking on these different fears, for me, it was skydiving had fear associated with it, dancing had fear associated with it, jiu-jitsu had fear. What you will find is your fear is totally ungrounded. A lot of times this fear that you've created, and you've built up this story. I heard a quote recently that said you can only truly fear once you have this like anticipating it is making you feel just unsettled and scared and tense. And so, because, you know, it's like, it's not really like, oh, I fear it. It's this buildup of having that difficult conversation with your boss.
Yeah, it's just like anticipated failure of the event.
Exactly. You're sitting there at the bar, you're looking at that girl, and you're like, God, I would give anything. And then that negative voice just says, yeah, well, this and this, and you're not good enough, you're not good looking enough. And in reality, there have been times where I finally sacked up and just been like gone and talked to her, and she was excited to talk to me. I'm like, oh my God, oh wow, you know, and you realize, wow, I'm just creating this story in my mind. When I went skydiving, it was one of the most life-changing, amazing experiences I ever had. And I was like, I want to do this as much as I can. So all of that fear was just this kind of veil and this thing that I had created in my mind to keep me in my comfort zone. So for everyone listening, those fears, it's just a story that you have chosen to accept that you can rewrite at any time. Just keep that in mind.
Definitely. You know, it's weird that girls actually think it's weird that guys find it scary sometimes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we're like, how could you not think that? Because it's just it's a different world where, you know, it's in society in general, which I always like to totally go against and challenge what society does in general, but it's like generally the guy approaches the girl and there's that pressure, and so the girls are waiting, and oftentimes from what I've heard from talking to friends, talking to girls I've dated, they're like, yeah, you know, we want a guy to come talk to us. They don't want you to come and be like, hey baby, let me, you know, but it's like, but just come up and make that introduction and try to start a conversation. And
yeah, I'm curious to why to what girls think. If there's any girl listeners,
comments.
We'd love to hear what you think about like why you think men have anxiety when they talk to women.
Yeah, please.
I mean, I don't because I'm perfect. I don't have anxiety.
Joel, Jack takes his Nootropics and he just picks up every girl at the bar.
Take Neuraflow and you'll talk to any girl you want.
Well, that's not a typical marketing tactic. Take this and you'll be better at everything.
Exactly.
So, all right, man. So we're coming up on our hour here, and I'm telling, time flies when you're having fun. I mean, time flies when you're talking to your Asian brother. That's how it goes.
That is the only reason why.
Yeah, you see, I mean, people get confused when I tell people me and Jack are brothers because he's Asian and I'm Irish and with bright red hair. But you know, genes are very complex. It's scientific. I can't explain it. So, so Jack, one of the things that we talked about prior to the call that I definitely want to get into, and so this is a new question that my dad actually asked me. He said, do you think this would be he's like, I really would think this would be a great addition, and that's around what value millennials bring to not only the workplace but to the world. Because what many people are listening to the show, and the reason they're listening to the show, is to find out, what can I do? What are the options? What are the things out there that exist for me? And many times they don't realize all of the intrinsic value that they have and they hold right now, and their ability to be who they want to be in this moment. So can you talk a little bit about the value that you see in our generation and what we bring, and what is the uniqueness that we hold that other generations do not?
Yeah, dude, millennials are the future, right? And so the whole cliche quote of "we are the leaders of tomorrow," and I think the reason we are so kind of quote unquote feared or kind of hesitant to hire or looked at differently is just because I feel like someone said that we care more about the quality of a lifestyle than we do about the quality of a career.
Mm-hmm.
Something about millennials, right? And I think, that might not be 100% true, but I can understand, because I feel like in the information world, we grew up in the information world where being ignorant was not a choice, or was not an option, rather. It was, if you were ignorant about a topic, you go Google it, right?
Right, exactly.
Information was abundant, and so this gave us a burst of energy and a burst of insight into new knowledge, and we grew exponentially because of that, and we created so many different types of technologies through social media, and we're literally redefining the way we communicate and the way humans communicate culturally. And I've always been a big fan of culture, and every generation creates a new culture. And millennials are creating one of the most powerful cultures that this entire human population has ever seen before, especially with the way we're creating technology nowadays, where everybody has the ability to do it. And we are the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. And even if you are not an entrepreneur, you can still be one of the greatest linchpins and one of the greatest advantages and assets in any company that you work for, because you hold the key to innovation, you hold the key to being edgy, you hold the key to basically new insight on how to use technology to grow our human culture.
Fantastic, dude. I love that. And so to build on that point, when for all the millennials listening, when you think about the value that you can bring, so often, like I said earlier in the interview, we think that we have nothing to offer because we're inexperienced. We look at the job requirements in a company and it says 3 to 5 years experience in an MBA and have these certifications, and we're like, I have none of that, I have nothing to bring. But as Jack said, we've grown up in the information age, and in past generations, if you didn't know something, you just didn't know it. And they're like, you could go get an encyclopedia, but it took a lot more effort to find out certain things. Now the issue is no longer the availability of information, it's the willingness to apply and attack and grow and continue your personal self-education throughout your life. Because as you continue to grow, there's going to be new things you're introduced to and new things you want to try. So constantly be willing to educate and strike out in the areas you want to learn about. And that will be, if you want to work in a company, big or small, that will be one of the most appealing aspects of your personality, is that you are diverse, that you have tried things, that you've experimented. Think about who you would want to interview. The person who has spent all of their time in school and done everything and gotten perfect scores all the time, or the person who took a year off from school and backpacked around China and then went ahead and tried their own business and had some good success and now wants to work in a different environment. It's like, think about the life you want to live. Don't think about who you think you need to be in order to be quote unquote good enough. So love that, Jack. That was fantastic, man. Now,
absolutely.
This is the question I always close my interviews out with is, it's kind of interesting because I'm now interviewing people that more fall into this millennial generation. And so typically most of the people that I interviewed in the past are somewhere in their 30s or beyond, and have a few more years on you or I. So it's very interesting for me to ask this question, especially considering all of the things you've done at such a young age. So the question that I love to ask is, if you could go back and talk to yourself at college graduation, knowing everything you know now, what would be the advice you would share with your younger self?
Three things. The first thing is the speed of implementation always wins, right? The faster you do something when you have an idea, or the faster you do something when you have that spark of passion, the better results you're going to get. The second thing is I would probably reiterate the idea of ready, fire, aim. I was a big believer in it, but it was difficult for me to kind of jump into it as passionately as I did. So reiterating the idea of ready, fire, aim. Just go and fucking do it. And the last thing is just don't worry. Everything's going to be okay. Like, just things could be a lot worse. Things are usually nowhere near the capacity that we think it's going to get to. So, dude, just don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. And keep blazing and keep disrupting and keep innovating.
Love it, man. That's fantastic. And it really is, it's something that just clicks so much where, for all the listeners, now, there is this feeling that I get, that Jack gets, that Eben Pagan gets, that every person on this planet, anyone that you look at that you admire, or if there's someone that has reached just amazing success, it's this idea of perfectionism where we try to be perfect before we start. That whole idea that Jack talked about before, ready, aim, fire. And we're sitting there and we spend months, years, like our whole lives aiming, trying to get the perfect shot. And we finally take one, and if we fail, we're like, oh, well, I wasted all this time trying to take that shot. Imagine if rather than worry about being perfect, you start just taking shots, you start firing away. Some miss the target completely, some get pretty close to where you want to be at, some are a little bit off, but then finally you start to get some consistency, you start to build up some muscle memory, you start to develop your skills to a point where you can start to consistently either get close or start hitting that bullseye. All of a sudden you're in a whole different world. So these concepts that Jack has talked about repeatedly throughout the interview, definitely think about just getting involved and diving in. Now there are certain scenarios where you've got to do a little bit of planning or you've got to do a little bit of research, but remember, just starting doesn't mean you're done learning. You can start and grow, and then start, and that'll show you what you need to learn next in order to grow to the next step.
Yep, perfectionism is often an excuse for procrastination.
Oh, absolutely. For me, that's, dude, in reaching the final stage of publishing my book, that has been one of the number one biggest things that's...
I'm super excited to read that, though, by the way.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. And you'll read it in 30 seconds on Nootropics. So, so I took Neuraflow and I read Brian's book in a blink.
Oh, man.
So Jack, I love what you're doing, man. I'm super excited for you, and I can't wait to hear about. You need to keep me posted and let me know how the business is going and how things are going with the dance crew as well. So what I would love for you to do is let the listeners know about where they can find out more about you and about Neuraflow. So if you can repeat some of the links, and if there's any other links that you have that you'd like to share, please feel free to do that.
Totally, yeah. I am just like any Generation Y or Millennial. I am always on Facebook. So you can always find me on Facebook. It's Jack space PBJ as in peanut butter and jelly, PBJ space Chen. That is the way I differentiate myself from all of the other million Chens in this world. So yeah, definitely find me on that. You can message me, man. Like, shoot me an email or add me as a friend. I'm more than happy to meet you guys and talk with you guys. And you can find out more about Neuraflow by going to www.buyneuraflow.com. Neuraflow, Neuraflow.com. And like we said, 10% off discount if you use Brian Drury as your coupon. So awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you, dude. Now, so hang on just for I'm going to do my little closeout if you hang out for a minute just after I close out the recording. But for all the listeners, definitely go check out Jack's new product. Use the code Brian Drury to get a nice little discount on this amazing new nootropic that Jack has developed. And for all of the content, the links, and anything that we reference during the show, it'll be put in the show notes for your convenience so that you can find all of the great content, the different links, the different people you reference, and learn even more about this wonderful Jack PBJ Chen. So, for all the listeners, as always, if this is your first time, I would love to have you subscribe to the show so you can get instant access to all of the latest episodes. You can do that by going and searching for Overcoming Graduation on iTunes or on Stitcher. And you can also find a full list of all the episodes at overcominggraduation.com, and on there you can also subscribe to the email list. You can check out Overcoming Graduation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you'd like to reach out to me directly to recommend some interviewees, to talk about why girls are so uncertain about why guys are afraid to approach people in the bar, if there's any other thing you'd like to share, any recommendations, any feedback, I would love to hear from you, and you can contact me at brian@overcominggraduation.com. So thank you all for being with us today. We really, really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I know I did. Jack, it's been a lot of fun, dude. So thank you again for giving me that awesome interview.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Love you, buddy. Now hang out for a minute.